So today I was in the Marmalade session, which was relationships, culture and place.
We were really interested in how Brent have approached their year-long festival that they're pulling together for the Borough of Culture. And what they've done is they've focused on exploring what's already happening in the community and looking to amplify those creative acts, rather than figuring out how they bring in external institutions into an area which doesn't particularly have long-standing artistic, creative, cultural institutions.
The unifying theme of today's session was inclusivity, and the inspiring thing is that we all seem to be kind of on the same page, and even more inspiring than that is that there are ideas floated around that I hadn't considered.
How might we in this room consider developing a creative and cultural offer in Oxfordshire as if nothing existed here already?
If thinking about Oxford from scratch, what sort of cultural activities and ideas might there be in a different place? Is there a way of making and thinking about arts and culture that's very specific to a city, but also thinks afresh about what people actually mean in their lives, space for reflection and creative activity, some engaging with other people's creative expression and discussing ideas and being invigorated by engaging with things in life.
How do you think completely differently about what kind of culture and what kind of art is promoted and delivered, so that people living in local communities have some kind of say over that and some agency over it? And then how do you make those decisions and how do you build those relationships?
What kind of activity should happen to make Oxford and Oxfordshire the best place to be in? What kind of programme should happen? Who should be involved? Who should decide what goes on? How should funding be allocated? How should decision making happen? Should it all be about, grant organisers and grant giving bodies choosing, or should the beneficiaries of projects be choosing what should get funded?
The discussion is around, okay, how do we do this? Who needs to be involved? But the important thing is you're not making those decisions. What you're doing is kind of testing out how it feels and how you might go about thinking about how those decisions are made.
We thought there should be better relationships between the university and the town and gown relationships, and that this should benefit the wider county.
Making sure there's a spectrum of spaces available for creativity throughout Oxfordshire, so from purpose-built venues like theatres, dance studios, art studios, whatever, through to reclaiming spaces like vacant shops and making use of those.
One of the key things that I took from being at the session today was what resource we can be to each other in the city.
It's actually all about relationships, and there are practical ways to build those relationships outside our own social groups. Getting outside our own echo chambers is really important.
There's 70 people all together in the room, all interested in exploring ideas of inclusion in culture and creative activities in Oxford. So that means I now know 70 different people who are interested in exploring these ideas together.
I think the most important thing that I've taken from it is the importance of co-creation, working with people to define the kind of things which are going to be really relevant and useful for them in their lives, rather than assuming from the start that we have a recipe which is going to work.
It shouldn't just be a top-down hierarchical way of councils and other grant funders kind of choosing what's going to be in the best interest of the communities. People should be engaged in making decisions about what's happening in their neighbourhood, and it shouldn't just be done centrally.
This is the start, or really this is very much part of an ongoing conversation between many people in the city that will keep going over the next months and years.